The morning sun cast long shadows across Camp Pendleton as recruit Emma Walsh stepped off the transport bus, her gear bag slung over one shoulder. The other Marines barely glanced her way as she made her way to the barracks. At 5 feet 4 inches tall with auburn hair tied back in regulation style, she looked like any other new Marine. What they couldn't see was the fire burning in her green eyes or the steady hands that had been holding rifles since she was 8 years old. Before we dive in, tell us where in the world are you watching from? If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button because tomorrow's episode is truly mind-blowing. Let's get started. Emma had grown up on a ranch in Montana where her grandfather taught her to shoot tin cans off fence posts before she could properly tie her boots. By age 12, she was outshotting men twice her age at local competitions. Her grandfather, a Korean War veteran, always said she had a gift. But gifts meant nothing here at advanced sniper training if you couldn't prove yourself to the toughest instructors in the Corps. Gunnery Sergeant Mike Peterson ran the sniper program with an iron fist. A 20-year veteran with 3 combat tours, he had seen every type of recruit walk through his doors. When he saw Emma's name on the roster, he shook his head. Female snipers were rare, and in his experience, most couldn't handle the physical and mental demands of the job. He decided to make an example of her from day one. The first week was brutal. While other recruits struggled with basic marksmanship, Emma consistently hit targets at 300 meters. Her form was perfect, her breathing controlled, her trigger pull smooth as silk. But Peterson wasn't impressed. He made her carry extra weight during field exercises, gave her the worst sleeping spots during camping drills, and constantly questioned her commitment in front of the other Marines. It was during week 3 that Emma made a decision that would change everything. The armorer was issuing rifles for a long-range shooting exercise when Emma noticed a damaged rifle stock in the corner. The weapon was functional, but had been set aside because of cosmetic damage to the pink camouflage pattern that had been applied as part of a breast cancer awareness campaign the previous year. Emma approached the armorer, Corporal Jake Stevens, a quiet man who maintained all the weapons with religious devotion. She asked if she could use the pink rifle instead of the standard issue weapon. Stevens looked puzzled but saw no regulation against it. The rifle was in perfect working condition, just cosmetically different. He handed it over with a shrug. When Emma walked onto the firing line carrying the bright pink rifle, the reaction was immediate. Snickers rippled through the group of 20 male Marines. Someone whistled the tune of a children's song. Another Marine loudly asked if she had borrowed it from a toy store. Even Peterson raised an eyebrow and made a note on his clipboard. Private First Class Tony Rixey, a loud-mouthed recruit from New Jersey who had been making Emma's life difficult since day one, couldn't resist. He announced to anyone within earshot that the Army must be getting desperate if they were handing out Barbie rifles. The laughter that followed was mean-spirited and designed to humiliate. Emma said nothing. She simply lay down at her firing position, adjusted her scope, and began her breathing routine. The target was 600 meters away, a standard distance for this particular exercise. As the range fell silent and Peterson called for the first relay to begin firing, Emma focused on her crosshairs and squeezed the trigger. Bullseye, then another, and another. 10 shots, 10 perfect hits. While other Marines struggled to keep their shots within the scoring rings, Emma's pink rifle spoke with deadly accuracy. The snickering stopped, replaced by grudging respect and more than a little curiosity. Over the following weeks, the pink rifle became Emma's signature. What had started as cruel mockery transformed into something else entirely. The weapon seemed to bring out her best shooting, as if the bright color helped her focus or reminded her of why she was there. She began to think of it as her grandfather would have, not as a tool of war, but as an extension of her own will and determination. The real test came during month 2 of training. Peterson announced that the class would be attempting shots at increasingly longer ranges, building up to the ultimate challenge, a target at 6,000 meters. At that distance, factors like wind speed, humidity, temperature, and even the rotation of the Earth came into play. It was a shot that separated true snipers from everyone else. The class had been reduced from 20 to 12 Marines. The physical demands, mental stress, and technical requirements had weeded out the others. Those who remained were the cream of the crop, each one capable of making shots that seemed impossible to ordinary people. But 6,000 meters was different. It was the stuff of legend. Emma had been preparing for this moment without realizing it. Every evening after official training ended, she would spend additional hours studying ballistics tables, weather patterns, and environmental factors. She practiced breathing techniques and mental visualization exercises her grandfather had taught her. While other Marines relaxed or complained about the difficulty of the program, Emma was calculating wind drift and bullet drop in her head. The day of the 6,000-meter challenge arrived with perfect weather conditions: clear skies, minimal wind, and steady temperature. Peterson had set up the shot on a remote part of the base where the terrain allowed for such extreme distances. The target was barely visible even through high-powered spotting scopes, appearing as nothing more than a small dot on the hillside. One by one, the Marines took their turns. These were skilled marksmen, each one capable of extraordinary shots under normal circumstances. But 6,000 meters was beyond normal. The first Marine missed by 20 meters. The second came closer but still missed the target completely. By the time 8 Marines had attempted the shot, not one had even hit the target board, let alone the scoring area. Rixai was the 9th shooter. He had been bragging all morning about his experience hunting in the mountains of Pennsylvania, claiming he had made similar shots on deer. As he settled behind his rifle, he made one final comment about how easy it would be compared to shooting with a toy gun. His shot missed by nearly 50 meters. Emma was the last shooter scheduled for the day. As she approached the firing line with her pink rifle, she could feel every eye on the range focused on her. Peterson stood with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. The other Marines watched with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Even the range support staff had gathered to witness what would likely be another miss at an impossible distance. Emma took her time setting up her position. She checked her scope settings 3 times, consulted her data book filled with handwritten notes, and used a handheld weather meter to verify wind conditions. The target was so far away that she had to account for a bullet drop of nearly 40 feet and compensate for a crosswind that would push her shot several feet to the left. As she settled behind her rifle, Emma thought of her grandfather. She remembered sitting with him on the porch of their ranch house, listening to his stories about Korea and the importance of patience in shooting. He had always told her that the rifle was just a tool, that the real weapon was her mind and her ability to remain calm under pressure. Emma's breathing slowed to a methodical rhythm. She placed her eye against the scope and found her target through the magnified optics. Even at maximum magnification, the target appeared impossibly small. She made minute adjustments to her point of aim, accounting for all the environmental factors she had calculated. The range fell completely silent. Even Peterson held his breath as Emma's finger found the trigger. She applied steady pressure, feeling for that perfect moment when everything aligned. The rifle fired with a sharp crack that echoed across the range. The bullet took nearly 6 seconds to travel the distance to the target. In that time, every person on the range strained to see through spotting scopes and binoculars. The spotter next to the target remained motionless for what seemed like an eternity before raising his arm in the signal for a hit. But it wasn't just any hit. When the target was retrieved and examined, Emma's bullet had struck within 2 inches of dead center. At 6,000 meters with a rifle that had been mocked as a toy, she had achieved what many considered impossible. The silence that followed was profound. Rixai stared at the target in disbelief. Other Marines shook their heads in amazement. Even Peterson, who had been skeptical of Emma from the beginning, allowed himself a small smile of approval. Word of the shot spread quickly throughout the base. By evening, Marines from other units were asking to see the pink rifle and hear the story of the impossible shot. Emma found herself surrounded by fellow Marines who wanted to know her secret, how she had managed to make a shot that veteran snipers would consider a career achievement. Emma tried to explain that it wasn't magic or luck. It was the result of countless hours of practice, meticulous attention to detail, and the lessons her grandfather had taught her about patience and focus. The pink rifle hadn't made the shot possible, but it had become a symbol of her determination to succeed despite the doubts of others. Peterson pulled Emma aside that evening as she was cleaning her rifle. For the first time since training began, he spoke to her without the hard edge that characterized his interactions with recruits. He admitted that he had underestimated her, and that her shot was one of the finest pieces of marksmanship he had witnessed in 2 decades of military service. The remaining weeks of sniper training passed quickly. Emma continued to excel, but the atmosphere around her had changed completely. The same Marines who had mocked her pink rifle now treated it with something approaching reverence. Rixai, who had been her harshest critic, became one of her strongest supporters, often telling anyone who would listen about the impossible shot he had witnessed. Graduation day arrived on a crisp morning in late autumn. 20 Marines had started the program, but only 8 completed it successfully. Emma finished first in her class, earning the highest scores in both marksmanship and fieldcraft. As Peterson pinned the sniper badge on her uniform, he whispered that she had earned the respect of every Marine on the base. Emma's first assignment took her to Afghanistan, where her skills were put to immediate use. The pink rifle came with her, now bearing official documentation as her assigned weapon. In the mountains of Helmand Province, she would use it to protect her fellow Marines and complete missions that others couldn't attempt. Her reputation preceded her to Afghanistan. Marines in her unit had heard the story of the 6,000-meter shot, though many assumed it was an exaggeration. It wasn't long before they learned otherwise. Emma's first confirmed kill came at a distance of 1,400 meters, neutralizing a sniper who had been harassing a forward operating base for weeks. The pink rifle became famous throughout her deployment. Afghan fighters began referring to her as the ghost with the pink gun, never knowing where the next shot might come from. Her fellow Marines developed an almost superstitious respect for the weapon, believing it brought good luck to their operations. Emma completed 3 deployments over 6 years, during which she was credited with over 40 confirmed kills and countless lives saved. She trained other snipers, sharing the techniques and mental discipline that had made her successful. Many of her students went on to distinguish themselves in combat, carrying forward the lessons she had learned from her grandfather and refined through years of practice. When Emma finally left the Marine Corps, she took the pink rifle with her through a special arrangement with the armorer who had first handed it to her years earlier. Stevens, now a sergeant, had followed her career with pride and ensured that the weapon would retire with the Marine who had made it legendary. Back home in Montana, Emma established a shooting school on her family's ranch. Students came from across the country to learn from the Marine who had made an impossible shot with a pink rifle. She taught them that color didn't matter, that mockery from others meant nothing, and that with enough dedication and practice, any barrier could be overcome. The pink rifle now hangs above the fireplace in her home, a reminder of the day she silenced an entire firing range and proved that determination matters more than appearance. Students at her school often ask about it, and Emma tells them the same thing her grandfather once told her. The weapon is just a tool, but the will to succeed is what makes the impossible possible. Years later, when Marines gather to share stories of legendary shots and exceptional marksmen, they still talk about the day a female Marine with a pink rifle made a 6,000-meter shot that defied belief. The story has grown in the telling, but those who were there remember it exactly as it happened. A moment when skill, preparation, and determination combined to create something extraordinary. Emma's legacy extends far beyond that single shot. She proved that excellence knows no gender and that determination can overcome any obstacle. The Marines who once mocked her became her biggest supporters, learning that judging someone by appearance rather than ability is a mistake no warrior can afford to make. The pink rifle story became part of Marine Corps folklore, told to new recruits as an example of how preconceptions can blind us to greatness. It reminds Marines that their brothers and sisters come in all forms, and that the Corps is strongest when it recognizes and develops talent wherever it is found. Emma continues to teach and inspire new generations of marksmen, always emphasizing that the color of your equipment matters far less than the content of your character and the depth of your preparation. Her students learn to shoot with precision and purpose, carrying forward the lessons of the Marine who turned mockery into motivation, and proved that sometimes the most unlikely tools can achieve the most extraordinary results.